Tanzania experienced a moment many people had waited years for. On the 19th of March 2021, Samia Suluhu Hassan was sworn in as the country's 6th president. Following the death of John Magufuli, who had disappeared from public view weeks earlier. For 5 years under Magufuli, political life had grown increasingly restrictive. Opposition rallies were banned, independent media outlets were shut down. Journalists, activists, and critics were arrested, and in some cases, forced into exile. So when Samia took office, many Tanzanians hoped this moment would mark a real break from the past. She was the country's first woman president, the first president from Zanzibar since Ali Hassan Mwinyi, and from the beginning, her tone felt different. She spoke of reconciliation, of stability, of reform. She introduced what she called a 4R agenda: reconciliation, resilience, reforms, and rebuilding. So, in this episode, we examine how that promise unfolded, what changed, what remained, and how Tanzania moved from reform to a tightly managed political space ahead of the 2024 and 2025 elections. Welcome to the African Ledger. If you value careful, fact-based storytelling about power, politics, and accountability across Africa, support our work by liking and subscribing. Here, we tell documented stories from across the continent, grounded in evidence and centered on the people affected. Within weeks of taking office, visible changes began to appear. In April 2021, political detainees were released. Newspapers that had been banned under the previous administration were allowed to publish again. Then, in July 2021, the government reversed its denial of COVID-19 and joined the COVAX vaccination program, reopening cooperation with global health institutions. Opposition figures who had lived in exile for years began to return home. The atmosphere shifted. By January 2022, Samia met publicly with opposition leaders Tundu, Lissu, and Freeman Mbowe, an image that quickly spread across Tanzania and beyond. International reaction followed. Foreign governments welcomed what they described as a new tone. Global media began referring to Samia as a reformer. Diplomats spoke openly about a political reset. For many Tanzanians, the fear of the previous years appeared to ease, but beneath this change in tone, something important remained untouched. Even as optimism grew, the first warning sign came early. On the 12th of April 2021, just weeks into Samia's presidency, two journalists, Dixon Bililiquija and Christopher James, went out to report in Dar es Salaam. They were covering allegations of mistreatment of traders by the Temeke District Executive Director. Before they could finish their work, police intervened. The two journalists were detained, questioned, and later released without charge. There was no court appearance, no formal accusation, no apology. At the time, it seemed minor, but it mattered, because it showed that although the language of leadership had softened, the tools used to control information were still firmly in place. By mid-2021, the legal framework governing political life had not changed. The Media Services Act of 2016 remained in force, so did the Cybercrimes Act of 2015. The Political Parties Act, amended in 2019, was untouched, and the online content regulations of 2018 were still being enforced. These were the same laws that had been used during the Magufuli years to silence journalists, restrict opposition activity, and criminalize online speech. None of them were repealed. None were meaningfully amended. They were simply applied with restraint, for now. By late April, pressure on the media became more visible. On the 21st of April 2021, journalist Jesse Mikofu was covering forced evictions in Stone Town, Zanzibar. As he photographed the scene, officers from the Kikosi cha Volunteers Zanzibar, a paramilitary unit, assaulted him. No officer was charged. Then, in August 2021, the government suspended Uhuru newspaper. Uhuru was not an opposition outlet. It was owned by the ruling party itself. Its offense was publishing an article suggesting that Samia Suluhu Hassan might not contest the 2025 election. The suspension was issued under the Media Services Act. 2 years earlier, in 2019, the East African Court of Justice had ruled that this same law violated press freedom and ordered Tanzania to amend it. That amendment never happened. Some stories stretched beyond Samia's presidency. One of them was Azori Gwanda. Gwanda was an investigative journalist. In November 2017, he was abducted while investigating alleged extrajudicial killings in Kibiti. He never returned home. Under Samia's administration, authorities repeatedly said they were investigating his disappearance. No report was published, no suspect was charged. By 2022, Azori Gwanda was still missing. The pressure soon shifted more directly towards political opposition. On the 21st of July 2021, police arrested Freeman Mbowe, chairperson of CHADEMA, in Mwanza. Mbowe had traveled to attend a meeting on constitutional reform. Police arrested him along with 11 others. They were charged with terrorism. Mbowe remained in detention for more than 7 months. In March 2022, the charges were suddenly dropped. No explanation was given. Throughout 2022 and 2023, opposition youth members were repeatedly arrested across the country. Their activities were largely the same: organizing meetings, discussing constitutional reform, mobilizing supporters. Some reported being beaten while in custody. Many cases never reached court. They ended quietly, but they continued. By 2024, the situation had hardened. As International Youth Day approached in August 2024, CHADEMA planned events in several regions. Police responded first with arrests. In Mbeya alone, more than 375 opposition supporters were detained over a period of days. Then on the night of the 18th of August 2024, 3 CHADEMA officials were taken by unidentified men. Their names were Dedith Soka, Jacob Godwin Mle, Frank Mbise. They were abducted. They have not been seen since. By 2025, the political environment had changed completely. Opposition leaders demanded electoral reforms, arguing that elections could not be free without an independent electoral commission. In April 2025, Tundu Lissu addressed supporters. His message was direct: no reforms, no election. Shortly afterward, he was arrested. He was charged with treason, a non-bailable offense. With that arrest, Lissu was removed from the campaign. Days later, CHADEMA was disqualified from participating in the elections. The country's main opposition party was no longer on the ballot. Tanzanians voted in October 2025. The election took place without the main opposition party. After the results were announced, protests broke out. Security forces responded. Human rights organizations documented protesters shot dead, mass arrests, and enforced disappearances. Families reported relatives killed during demonstrations. Others were taken into custody and never returned. Human rights groups reported hundreds of deaths in the post-election crackdown. The government has disputed parts of that narrative and has not published a full official accounting. As of now, there has been no public disclosure of completed investigations or convictions related to several of the abductions, disappearances, and killings discussed in this episode. Among those still missing are Dedith Soka, Jacob Godwin Mle, and Frank Mbise, who were abducted in August 2024. In September 2024, the body of Ali Mohammed Kibao was found in Dar es Salaam, days after he was taken from a bus. To date, no one has been publicly charged in connection with his killing. These names are not statistics. They represent people and families still waiting for answers. This episode is dedicated to those who lost their lives, those who disappeared, and the loved ones left behind. We will continue to follow verified developments related to these cases and report them as they emerge. Thank you for watching. This is The African Ledger. If you value careful, evidence-based reporting from across the continent, consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time, take care of yourself and take care of one another.